Okay. Fuzz E. Grant is up next. I'm standing next to her piece right here. Fuzz has been in, I think, all of our shows, both at 780 Valencia and at Clement Street. Her Disappointed Bunnies series they were always a central part of our shows, and they're just hilarious and creative if you haven't seen them. She also did a massive sperm whale mother and baby for our sea show, which was awesome. I'm always really tickled to see what she's going to submit next. So, Fuzz, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Fuzz E. Grant. This is Turtle Mountain. My work is mostly about changing the perspective of how humans and animals see each other. So we have a very human-centric vision of how we see the world and how we view animals. And then I went and spent some time in Alaska with grizzly bears and brown bears. And the power structure was completely reversed. Like, you were just at the whim of the bears. And I wasn't afraid of the bears, but I became very much aware of my surroundings and very much anxious and on edge about everything that was happening around me, all the movements. And I realized that this is probably how animals see the human world all the time, and because humans are like everywhere now, that's how they must feel. And it just blew my mind, and I was like, I really need to explore how animals see our world. So this is Turtle Mountain, and this is based on the idea that home is not like a building for a lot of creatures, a lot of humans as well. It's a topography, it's a sense of landscape, it's a sense of colour. I've also moved around the world a lot. Obviously I'm from Australia, and I've lived in Europe and I've lived here, and so my sense of home has never been a building either. It has always been a landscape, I would say, and a sense of light, and the light that is the sunlight and the way the seasons change and what happens with that environment rather than a built environment. And also Turtle Mountain, I think, is also about how a lot of creatures, including us at one evolutionary stage, carried our home with us. And a lot of creatures still do that, and they don't have a place they go to every night, the one thing. They have it with them. And I find that, very interesting, and also as we're living in the city now, people are carrying their homes with them, they're carrying all their possessions with them and creating their own little senses of homes and their own little shells kind of thing over them as well. And I kind of feel like they're kind of like turtle-ish as well, and it's getting this weird kind of combination of different perspectives all happening at once. So I'll tell you how he's made. I mostly use found materials. There's a lot of the structures, a lot of cardboard and things like that, and then I cover it all in plaster and start using clay to create these kind of aspects of him. And then I also use a lot of collage. So I've been collecting papers for about 20 years now, and I have a ton of papers in my studio. And I just kind of rummage through them like an animal and pick out things that I find are good for that. There's no real reason for it. There's a very organic kind of aspect to it. And I kind of build up layers of paper until I get the colour and the texture and the feeling of that landscape or that creature. I guess that's it. Anything else? Any questions? I know my philosophy is a little odd to some, but yeah, it gets a bit smushy in my brain sometimes, and so I try and get it out as much as I can.
Fuzz, can you talk about your studio is at 1890 Bryant?
It is.
You've been working on a life-size bunny.
Yes.
Can you talk about that bunny for a second?
So earlier last year, I woke up one morning and went, I want to make a 9-foot walk-in bunny. And my husband went, shit. So I tend to just throw myself into things, and I wanted to make this experience where you become the animal. And so it's this massive bunny, it's 9 foot tall. You go around the back and you go inside, and it's like a big cocoon inside. It's all like quilted and everything. And then there's like a porthole, and you can see through the porthole as the bunny would see. So you're kind of seeing the world as a bunny, and it's interesting because a lot of people are afraid of it. Which, okay, I can talk about rabbits for a long time, but I know the alarm's going to go off. So a lot of people are afraid of the outside, they're afraid to go inside. But once they're inside, they're like, oh, this is weird. But then they feel on display as well, and so they get this weird perspective of being the animal. And it's interesting. It's an interesting social experiment, I would say. Yes.
Do you have an animal that you relate to personally?
I think I'm a bear.
Okay.
Mostly because I tend to just I'm very curious, and I also just kind of destroy shit. Like, my husband calls it, she's bared it, yeah, coming from Australia, I wasn't really into animals as much. I mean, in Australia, there's a lot of animals, but they're not very, how do I even describe it? They're not like with you. They're very timid, most of the animals, because there's no large predators, so they're very timid, yeah. But when I came to Europe and America and here, I was like, wow, amazing. So you guys have great national parks.
If you go back to Australia, do you think you'll get into those animals?
Probably, yeah. Last time I was there, I had some fun times with the wombat. It was cool, yeah. But when I go back, the different landscape is just, I'm like, wow, this feels so familiar, and yet it doesn't feel like home anymore. Yeah. Okay. Just stop.
Can I just say something before we got record? Yeah. So Fuzz is part of our Women Rising show, the first time we did it, our first annex. And it was right at the beginning of COVID. And what I did to make the artists super uncomfortable was ask them to drop their art and talk about it on the fly for however long they wanted to. And Fuzz was like, no. And she dropped her piece and she left. It was like, oh my gosh, she's like, I would never do that on the fly. I have to think about it. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize we were so good. So you did such a magnificent job. It was so great to hear you.